What if I told you that the biggest mistake of your life wasn't what you lost, but what you weren't yet ready to receive? It sounds harsh, doesn't it? But think about it. How many times have you chased after answers, books, courses, techniques, and in the end, the truth seemed to slip away like water through your fingers? Life has its own rhythm, a symphony that doesn't obey our impatient ego. Socrates once said, "True wisdom lies in recognizing one's own ignorance." And maybe what keeps us from awakening isn't a lack of knowledge, but an excess of anxiety, the urge to have everything now on our schedule instead of the universe's perfect timing. We live in an era that idolizes speed, instant likes, quick replies, real-time validation. But what happens when we try to rush what can only bloom through its own maturation? Hurry robs us of the lesson, the necessary struggle, the spiritual maturity that only grows when the heart surrenders to silence. So let me ask you, what if the delays in your life aren't failures, but preparation? And what if the coincidences you call chance are actually synchronicities from a God who knows your soul better than you do? What you're about to discover might completely change the way you see awakening, truth, and your very identity. Imagine a seed buried in the soil. You can water it every day, but you have no power to command, "Sprout now." Awakening works the same way. It doesn't bow to our calendars or our desire for control. It blooms when the heart becomes fertile ground, when the ego grows tired of its own illusions, and consciousness finally opens to something greater. In daily life, the frantic search for instant awakening resembles spiritual course marathons, compulsive reading of self-help books, and the rush to consume motivational videos like someone drinking coffee just to stay awake. But the truth, and here lies the irony, is that the more we try to force enlightenment, the further it drifts away. It's like trying to fall asleep through effort. The more you try, the more awake you become. Socrates warned us, the unexamined life is not worth living. But notice, to examine doesn't mean to force. It means to question, to reflect, to accept silence as part of the process. Ignorance is believing we can control the moment of awakening. The result is exhaustion, frustration, and the constant feeling of being indebted to ourselves. The philosophical solution is to surrender to patience, to cultivate presence, to trust that spiritual maturity comes at the right time. Awakening is not the fruit of intelligence, but of readiness. How many have heard the same phrase dozens of times until one day it struck them like lightning? The phrase didn't change. The heart matured. That's the moment when coincidence reveals itself as synchronicity, as if the entire universe conspired to whisper, "Now you're ready to understand." And notice how this applies today. How often do social networks bombard us with fast truths, catchy quotes, prepackaged advice? But without inner preparation, it all vanishes like the wind. True awakening doesn't come from an excess of information. It's born from inner transformation, slow, patient, almost imperceptible, until suddenly you're no longer the same. Thus, awakening is not an achievement, but a revelation. It chooses us when we are ripe, like a fruit that falls from the tree only when its time has come. It's not merit, it's synchronicity. The question is, are you ready to be chosen, or do you still insist on choosing before the right time? And you, have you ever felt that moment when something seemingly simple struck you as an absolute truth? Share it in the comments. Plato compared life to a cosmic dance, where every step happens to the rhythm of a music we cannot fully hear. Time, in this sense, is not the enemy, but the conductor. When we say that time is divine, we're not referring to a ticking clock, but to the invisible rhythm that orchestrates the universe like a perfect symphony. How many times have you felt frustrated because something didn't happen when you wanted it to? The job that didn't come through, the relationship that ended, the answer that seemed delayed. But what if all of that was, in truth, synchronicity? Those coincidences that only make sense later, when we look back and realize, if it had happened earlier, I wouldn't have had the maturity to handle it. It's like giving a philosophy book to a child. The words are there, but the consciousness isn't yet ready to absorb them. Seneca once said, "Hasten to live well and think that each day is, in itself, a life." The ignorant believe they can manipulate time. The result is anxiety, haste, and a constant feeling of being behind. The philosophical solution is to understand that life never delivers anything before the right time. Just as ripe fruit falls only when it's ready, we too only harvest revelations when the soul is in alignment. Look at how we live, imprisoned by digital immediacy, instant likes, same-day deliveries, information in seconds. We've built the illusion that everything must be available now, but when we apply that same logic to inner growth, we create nothing but frustration. The rhythm of the heart is not the rhythm of the algorithm. Think about it. How many times has a delay saved your life? How many times has a closed door actually protected you from something you weren't ready to face? Time is a silent teacher. It doesn't deny, it prepares. The symphony doesn't rush to please the listener. It plays at the exact tempo of its harmony. Deep down, trusting in divine timing is an act of surrender. It's saying, I don't need to control every detail because I know the universe gives me what I can handle at the right moment. And here's the question that echoes. Can you accept that even delays and silences can be forms of care? Have you ever noticed a coincidence that only made sense years later? Share it in the comments. Heraclitus said, "Everything flows, nothing remains." This phrase reminds us that life is not static, but a constant movement in cadence. The universe, in its vastness, functions as a grand symphony. Every event is a note, every encounter a measure, every silence a musical pause that gives meaning to the whole. When we are out of rhythm, we feel chaos. When we align with the rhythm, we discover harmony. In everyday life, this rhythm reveals itself even in the smallest things. The heart beats in steady pulses, sleep follows cycles, and the tides obey the moon. Yet modern man, in trying to speed everything up, work, relationships, self-knowledge, forgets that forcing the music is like trying to pry open a rosebud by hand. Instead of blooming, you destroy the delicacy of its petals. Socrates would challenge us with a question. What's the point of chasing the next step if you don't even know how to dance the one you're in? Ignorance lies in resisting the natural rhythm. The consequence is anxiety, stress, and a sense of emptiness. The philosophical solution is to learn to listen, to feel, to surrender to the silent cadence the universe offers. Look at our digital culture. Everyone competing for attention, consuming content like swallowing scattered notes without melody. This haste steals the music of life from us. How many are so busy running toward the future that they can no longer hear the harmony of the present? It's like being in an orchestra and hearing only your own instrument, forgetting there's an ensemble. The rhythm of the universe also reveals itself in so-called coincidences. When you meet someone unexpectedly who changes your path, or read a book on the very day you needed that exact phrase, that's not chance, that's synchronicity, the symphony manifesting in your life. You begin to see that there's a hidden order weaving events together. Deep down, living is learning how to dance. And to dance requires trust, patience, surrender. When we accept that life has pauses, slow tempos, and sudden crescendos, we discover there is no disharmony, only a symphony greater than our immediate understanding. And the question remains, are you willing to stop fighting against the rhythm and start listening to it? Have you ever felt that everything was in tune, like a perfect piece of music? Share it in the comments. There's a common illusion, believing that the more we read, study, or accumulate information, the closer we are to enlightenment. But readiness can't be measured in diplomas or books on a shelf. It's measured in maturity, in emotional scars, in experiences that shape us from within. Intelligence can memorize concepts. Spiritual maturity transforms the soul. We see this clearly in daily life. How many people have access to every success manual and still drown in anxiety and emptiness, while others, without academic titles, radiate serenity and wisdom because life has taught them through mistakes, pain, and growth? It's like the difference between knowing the recipe and knowing the flavor. Information is theory, maturity is practice. Aristotle said, "Educating the mind without educating the heart is no education at all." Here lies the philosophical triad. Ignorance is confusing intelligence with readiness. The consequence is living as an eternal student, always accumulating, never blooming. The solution is to cultivate inner maturity, allowing pain, mistakes, and even falls to become teachers in the process. How many times have you gone through suffering that seemed unbearable at the time, but later realized it was in that very moment that your consciousness expanded? Maturity is born not from escaping the process, but from surrendering to it. The fruit only ripens when the sun and rain do their work, not when we try to rush it. In the modern world, the rush to be ready is amplified by social media. Constant comparison creates the false idea that everyone else is already ahead, that you need to hurry or risk falling behind. But that's an illusion. Maturity doesn't follow collective timelines. It follows the unique rhythm of your soul. The lotus blooms in its own time, not in anyone else's. Deep down, readiness isn't about knowing more. It's about being more. It's when consciousness learns to witness its own thoughts, when the ego gives space to presence, when the mask falls and true identity is revealed. Spiritual maturity is the key that opens doors intelligence alone could never reach. And have you ever experienced a moment when you realized it wasn't about gaining more knowledge, but about finally being ready? Share it in the comments. But what if everything you believe to be your life is just a mask? What if the identity you've built over the years is merely a role rehearsed on the stage of existence? Socrates challenges us. The unexamined life is not worth living. That sentence isn't just a warning, it's a cry. A call to strip away the persona, to question the ego, to face consciousness not as a fleeting illusion, but as the witness of reality itself. How many times have you run in circles within the game of life, comparing yourself, seeking external validation, feeding resentments? The cycle of pain repeats. Mistake, judgment, suffering, emotional scars, and deep down, what remains? The feeling of separation, the loneliness of someone who has forgotten their unity. But here lies the paradox. Freedom isn't born from accumulating, but from letting go. Inner transformation happens when you dare to enter the silence, detach from certainty, look within, and ask, who am I without the character I play? What if you've never truly known yourself? What if every thought is just a shadow projected on the wall of Plato's cave? What if your reality is a distorted reflection, and the truth has always been within you, waiting for the moment of courage? This is the breaking point, the instant when ignorance, pain, and illusion can finally become blossoming clarity and liberation, but only if you dare to examine yourself without excuses. And you? Have you ever had the courage to look at yourself without masks, without excuses, without filters? Share it in the comments. Try to remember the last time you fell asleep. Was there any effort? No. Sleep came when you surrendered. The same happens with spiritual awakening. It isn't the result of mechanical effort, but of surrender. The more we struggle to wake up, the more we remain trapped in the very ego that resists it. It's only when we release control that truth finds the space to bloom. In everyday life, we see the opposite of surrender, the obsessive search for methods, techniques, gurus, and quick formulas. It's like someone trying to force a flower bud to open before its time. The result? Frustration, anxiety, and often the abandonment of the path itself. What we forget is that blossoming is natural. The lotus unfolds in silence, without hurry, at the perfect moment. Epictetus once said, "Do not seek for events to happen as you wish, but wish them to happen as they do, and your life will flow serenely." Here lies the philosophical triad once again. Ignorance is trying to control the uncontrollable. The consequence is the slavery of anxiety. The solution is to learn to trust the flow of life, to surrender to the rhythm of the universe, and to accept that consciousness cannot be forced. It can only be allowed. Surrender doesn't mean passivity. It isn't about doing nothing, but about aligning yourself with the flow of reality. In the modern world, we've become so addicted to control, algorithms, schedules, instant results, that we've forgotten true power lies not in domination, but in trust. Silence, presence, and surrender are far stronger keys than haste. And there is beauty in this surrender. When we stop fighting against the tides, we realize they carry us exactly where we need to be. Life stops being a battle and becomes a dance. Suffering removes its mask of enemy and reveals itself as a teacher. Mistakes cease to be failures and become lessons. That is the hidden power of surrender, transforming heaviness into lightness. At its core, surrender is an act of courage. It's admitting, I don't control everything, but I trust. It's letting go of the ego that craves instant results to embrace patience, spiritual maturity, and alignment between heart and mind. Only then does enlightenment arise, not as a trophy, but as a natural consequence. Many still see God as an external, distant figure, a judge watching from afar. But what if instead God were the very flow of existence itself? Not a being sitting on a throne, but the intelligence that sustains every atom, every cosmic symphony, every heartbeat. The divine wouldn't be out there, but revealing itself in every instant of your life. We can see this intelligence in the smallest details of daily life, the body that heals itself, the heart that beats in perfect rhythm without our command, nature that flourishes through flawless cycles, day and night, rain and drought, death and rebirth. This is not coincidence. It is the invisible pulse of life, an alignment that connects everything in unity. Plato once said that the sensory world is merely a shadow of the world of ideas, where true reality resides. Ignorance is seeing only the visible. The consequence is believing we are alone, abandoned to chaos. The philosophical solution is realizing that a greater intelligence sustains everything, an unseen order unfolding through every coincidence, every synchronicity that crosses our path. And yet, we live in an age of excessive rationality. We demand immediate proof, data, charts, measurable results. But what is science, if not humanity's attempt to decipher this divine intelligence? DNA, the laws of physics, quantum resonance, all point to a universe that is not chaos, but rhythm, balance, and constant revelation. Accepting God as unfolding intelligence is to free yourself from the illusion of separation. We are not isolated pieces, but notes in the same symphony. When we truly understand this, life ceases to be a struggle and becomes communion. Trust is born. If there is order in the cosmos, then there is also order within my inner process, even when it appears confusing. At its core, this vision restores peace. If God is living intelligence, then every mistake, every pain, every cycle is part of a greater purpose. It is not punishment but preparation, not chaos but clarity in the making. And the question that echoes is, do you have the courage to see the divine not as someone distant, but as the very life pulsing through you right now? The common mistake is imagining that awakening happens all at once, like a lightning bolt that illuminates everything forever. But it isn't so. Readiness is not a final point, but a continuous process. Like waves that advance and retreat, each bringing a new revelation, the soul matures in layers, like the lotus that unfolds petal by petal. In everyday life, we feel this clearly. There are moments when we believe we've understood something essential, yet soon after, life presents us with new lessons. It's like learning patience. You can read 1,000 inspiring quotes, but you only truly mature when you face delays, pain, or frustration. Each experience is a new class, and each fall an invitation to rise with deeper spiritual maturity. Aristotle said, "We are what we repeatedly do." Ignorance lies in believing that a single revelation is enough. The consequence is stagnation, the illusion that we have arrived. The philosophical solution is to embrace the ongoing process, to understand that awakening is renewed at every stage, through every mistake, every suffering transformed into learning. And see how this applies today. Many live in a frantic search for the great answer, the ultimate video, the perfect book. But life isn't a finish line. It unfolds like an endless symphony. Maturity is progressive because consciousness expands only through contrast, darkness and light, pain and healing, silence and revelation. There is beauty in this movement. Continuous readiness is like the cycle of the seasons. Every winter brings a necessary retreat, every spring renewed blossoming. There is no final failure nor ultimate enlightenment, only a process in motion, in which every moment brings us closer to clarity. At its heart, this understanding is freeing. We don't need to be perfect now. We don't need to have all the answers. It's enough to be aligned, open, and present. Maturity isn't measured by the destination, but by the journey. And the question remains, can you accept that awakening is an endless path, and that it is precisely in this continuity that your strength lies? In his famous allegory of the cave, Plato describes men chained in darkness, mistaking shadows for reality. But what happens when, upon leaving the cave, we realize that the light we've been seeking is not only outside, but also within us? That's the central point. The seeker and the sought are not separate. They are one and the same. In everyday life, we act like hunters of meaning, chasing after courses, gurus, and magic formulas, as if enlightenment were a distant trophy. But in the end, we discover that what we call God, truth, or freedom has always been present within our own consciousness. The answer is not found outside, it's found in silence, in presence, in self-acceptance. Socrates once said, "Know thyself, and you will know the universe and the gods." Ignorance lies in seeking outside oneself. The consequence is the endless cycle of frustration, always believing that something is missing. The philosophical solution is to understand that awakening is not acquisition, but revelation. You already are what you seek. See how this plays out today. In the digital world, the illusion is believing that the next video, the next book, the next technique will finally bring clarity. But when the seeker realizes that true transformation is inward, liberation is born. He no longer depends on external validation, no longer needs the mask or persona to exist. He discovers that his real identity is unity, not separation. This understanding brings clarity and peace. The ego dissolves, the mind finds balance, and the soul begins to bloom. Suddenly, mistakes become lessons, suffering turns into compassion, and emotional scars become portals of empathy. The seeker discovers that he has always been standing before the mirror. The journey was simply the path back to himself. At its core, the search is the game of life, and the reward is realizing that we already are what we've been seeking all along. The seeker and the sought are one. The question is, are you ready to stop running outside yourself and finally dive into the silence where everything is revealed? If you've come this far, you've already seen it. Awakening isn't a fixed destination, but a continuous process. It's a symphony, not a sprint. It's blossoming, not conquest. And above all, it's realizing that truth has never been outside. It has always been within you. Socrates taught that the unexamined life is not worth living. Now you know, every coincidence is synchronicity, every suffering is preparation, every silence is an invitation. The universe, in its perfect rhythm, has always been waiting for the moment when you'd be ready to see yourself without masks. And that moment could be now. It doesn't matter if you still feel doubts, make mistakes, or carry emotional scars. In philosophy, spirituality, and even science, we learn that order is born from chaos, maturity from pain, and clarity from emptiness. That is the mark of inner transformation, slow but inevitable. Now I invite you to reflect. Which part of this journey spoke most deeply to your soul? Write it in the comments, because dialogue is the essence of philosophy, and your words might illuminate another seeker's path. And if this reflection resonated with you, like this video and subscribe to the channel. Not to follow just another piece of content, but to continue this philosophical dialogue and grow together, step by step, in the art of living with wisdom. Remember, the seeker and the sought are one. The next step may reveal something even deeper,